What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny. Back in here, one more reaction video, ladies and gentlemen. And today, I got a new guest coming to the channel. It's one of my role models, I'll say, Mr. Dalio. And this clip is from his book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. I actually like to call myself the Black Ray Dalio because his net worth is $20 billion and no one knows who he is. And that's just my goal, is to be dummy rich. And nobody recognizes me if I walk into your random Walmart. But in this video, he's going to discuss the changing world order and how currency becomes a dominant currency, and then the life cycle of watching it fall and what's currently happening in the world today. And I'm going to put my little 2 cents on top. If you like what you hear in this video, please share this thing far and wide.
As I studied the 10 most powerful empires over the last 500 years and the last 3 reserve currencies, it took me through the rise and decline of the Dutch Empire and the guilder, the British Empire and the pound, the rise and early decline in the United States Empire and the dollar, and the decline and rise of the Chinese Empire and its currencies, as well as the rise and decline of the Spanish, German, French, Indian, Japanese, Russian, and Ottoman empires, along with their significant conflicts, as measured in this chart. To understand China's patterns better, I also studied the rise and fall of Chinese dynasties and their monies back to the year 600. Because looking at all these measures at once can be confusing, I'll focus on the 4 most important ones: the Dutch, British, US, and Chinese. You'll quickly notice the pattern. Now let's simplify the form a bit. As you can see, they transpired in overlapping cycles that lasted about 250 years, with 10 to 20-year transition periods between them. Typically, these transitions have been periods of great conflict because leading powers don't decline without a fight. So how am I measuring an empire's power? In this study, I used 8 metrics. Each country's measure of total power is derived by averaging them together. They are education, inventiveness and technology development, competitiveness in global markets, economic output, share of world trade, military strength, the power of their financial center for capital markets, and the strength of their currency as a reserve currency.
Oh, man.
Because
by the looks of it, America's down bad right now. Education, we're struggling. Inflation's at 9.1%. And yet they got the masses of people worried about January 6th. I only make videos like this because this is the real stuff that I believe most people really care about, this type of information. If I could rap about this and put it over a beat, it'd get a lot more attention. But it ain't twerking, it ain't disrespecting people, it ain't cursing. But where attention goes, energy flows, and we got to make a lot more videos like this so we can understand what's happening to our country at this very moment.
Because these powers are measurable, we can see how strong each country is now, was in the past, and whether they're rising or declining. By examining the sequences from many countries, we can see how a typical cycle transpires. And because the wiggles can be confusing, we can simplify it a bit to focus on the pattern of cause-effect relationships that drive the rise and decline of a typical empire. As you can see, better education typically leads to increased innovation and technology development, and with a lag, the establishment of the currency as a reserve currency. You can also see that these forces then declined in a similar order, reinforcing each other's decline. Let's now look at the typical sequence of events going on inside a country that produces these rises and...
You know, they say history doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And that's what we're noticing, is paying attention to these cycles. Nothing's really new that's happening in the world. Just the masses of people have not ever paid attention to what's going on in the world.
Declines. In a nutshell, the big cycle typically begins after a major conflict, often a war, establishes the new leading power and the new world order. Because no one wants to challenge this power, a period of peace and prosperity typically follows. As people get used to this peace and prosperity, they increasingly bet on it continuing. They borrow money to do that, which eventually leads to a financial bubble. The empire's share of trade grows, and when most transactions are conducted in its currency, it becomes a reserve currency, which leads to even more borrowing. At the same time, this increased prosperity distributes wealth unevenly, so the wealth gap typically grows between the rich haves and the poor have-nots. Eventually, the financial bubble bursts, which leads to the printing of money and increased internal conflict between the rich and the poor, which leads to some form of revolution to redistribute wealth. This can happen peacefully or as a civil war. While the empire struggles with this internal conflict, its power diminishes relative to external rival powers on the rise. When a new rising power gets strong enough to compete with the dominant power that is having domestic breakdowns, external conflicts, most typically wars, take place. Out of these internal and external wars come new winners and losers. Then the winners get together to create the new world order. And the cycle begins again.
How accurate is this?
As I looked back, I saw that these cause and effect relationships drove the cycles of rises and declines all the way back to the Roman Empire. I saw how the stories of each one of these cycles blended together with others before, during, and after, in the same way as each individual story blends with others to make the epic 500-year story that is our collective history. And like human life cycles, no two are exactly the same, but most are similar. They're driven by logical cause and effect relationships that progress through stages from birth to strength and maturity to weakness and inevitably decline. However, that's like saying a person's life cycle takes 80 years on average, without recognizing that many are much shorter and many are longer. While age can be a good indicator of future longevity, a better way is to look at health indicators. One can do that with empires and their vital signs too. I found that by watching the indicators of power change, I was able to see what stage a country was in, which helped me to anticipate what was likely to come next. Now,
Now, my question is, how healthy would you currently say America is at this moment? I mean, internal fighting, I wouldn't say it's at all-time high, but it's the highest it's ever been in my young life. I've never seen people so political in my life. True story, the first time politics ever was like really known about to me was when Kanye West hopped on the mic and said George Bush doesn't care about black people. I was in high school at that time. And now you got elementary kids who don't like their friends if their parents voted for Trump. Everything has become extremely political, and that's why I say America's on the decline. Because we're not innovative. There's not a bunch of creators anymore in America. There's a ton of consumers. But around the world, they're creating. They're coming up with new ideas. And I say, all we are in this world is an idea. Everything you see around you physically started as an idea. And you have that same power inside of you. But if you're consuming what the media is feeding to you on a daily basis, and your highest goal is to be a social justice warrior, then you're not creating anything. You're not leaving a legacy for yourself, for your children, for your grandchildren. You know, a way to be a rebel in today's system is grow up. Find you a good wife, get married, and have some babies. Create a beautiful family, and help your children repeat the cycle. That's a way to be a rebel in today's society. If not, if you're just spending money and out having fun, you're contributing to the decline of America. No knock at you. Do what you do, but watch my shoes. But the information is out there for all of us. You can do anything. You can accomplish anything. You are limitless. You know, life is nothing but a video game. Why would you want to play the role of the victim your whole life? Why not be the star? You have that power. Be the change you wish to see in this world. Until next time, we out.